When I was a kid, my brother and sister and I would compete at the games on our family's Macintosh SE. We didn't have a ton of games initially, mainly freeware and shareware that my mom got from the college she was attending. One of those games, called Bonsai, really stuck with me. I reviewed this game in Classic Mac Games Episode 1, but it's just a simple game where you'd fire mortar rounds at ever-advancing troops and tanks. It's monotonous, with no music or sound and really no sense of progression. But still, that didn't stop us kids from competing at the game. Trying so hard to outdo each other, grasping at our sanity, all for the ambitious prospect of holding on a little longer to get a high score and our names on the title screen. My name, an achievement that'll prove that I am better than you, and that's something that will live on forever. Or until my brother would trash the high scores file. Anyways, Bonsai is pretty much an advertisement for the commercial game Airborne. Airborne was always such a mystery to me. I'd stare at the screen and wonder what it was all about. I really wanted to play it. Sadly, I never got the chance back then. It wasn't until I downloaded it off the internet and checked it out in an emulator back in the early 2000s. I do have a real copy of it nowadays. Well, the disc anyways. The box version is really rare today, and when it does pop up on eBay, it always goes for at least a couple $100. But that's okay. This game means a lot to a lot of people who actually played it in the Mac Plus days. I never had it back then, but I'm thrilled to at least have the disc. If you look at the actual box, it kind of foreshadows its own collectability. Believe it or not, I'm actually kind of glad we didn't buy this game back when I was a kid. I've tried this game on 2 Macintosh SEs, and only after a couple minutes or two, it crashes. At first I thought it was because I have a Radius 16, a 68020 accelerator installed, but after disabling it, it still didn't work. I busted out another plain old Mac SE and then tried it on there. Oh yeah, I think it's gonna work. I think it's worked. Nope. Oh. So after downloading a fresh copy online and having them crash, I suspect the game just doesn't like Mac SEs. It might just be a RAM configuration, but I really don't feel like troubleshooting this. And thankfully Mini VMac runs the game pretty well. So that's what we'll be using to check this game out. So Airborne is an action shooter arcade style game released in 1984, the same year as the original Macintosh was released. It was designed by Charlie Jackson, the head of the now defunct Silicon Beach Software. It was programmed by Jonathan Gay, who's pretty well known for his work on the original Mac Dark Castle games, but probably even more so with his work developing the Flash multimedia platform. The sound in this game was captured and digitized by Eric Zucker, who actually stood outside a Marine base waiting for the helicopters and jets to fly by so he could capture the actual sounds they made for use in the game. This is actually the first Macintosh game ever to use real digitized sound. It was a technique developed by both Jackson and Zucker, and later branded as Real Sound. Real Sound was used in other Silicon Beach games, and was really a very impressive feature back in the day. Is this a Macintosh, or is it a cassette tape player? I don't know! In Airborne, the objective is to destroy the advancing helicopters, planes, tanks, and soldiers. You have 2 weapons available to shoot these guys: the anti-aircraft and mortar guns. The anti-aircraft gun will blast anything in the air, and you can choose to have either guided or unguided shots. With guided shots, it makes things a lot easier, as you can move the mouse back and forth to control the upwards angle of your shots. You can't move the shots downwards though, so it's best to keep the bullets low and only raise them when you need them. The mortar gun is tough to control, but you should be taking out most of the enemies in the air, so hopefully you won't need to use it much. It's for taking out the paratroopers or tanks that get past you and land on the ground. Once a certain number of these guys hit the ground, they'll start advancing, and when one of these guys gets close enough to you, he'll chuck a grenade at you and it's all over. You gotta watch out for the tanks too, because they don't have to get very close to you before they let loose on you. As you can see, you get points for destroying the enemies, which varies with the size and seriousness of the vehicle. But with every shot you take, your score goes down, so it's best not to just spam the screen with bullets unless there are a ton of guys to take out on screen. There are no real waves or rounds in this game, but every so often there will be a break in the onslaught and things will get quiet. A little too quiet. Whoa! This F-15 that swoops in can be tricky to shoot, and a lot of the time when he shoots at me, I'm toast. If you can manage it, try not to shoot the jet right away. If you can manage to shoot the missile, it's a lot of points. 25. And that's basically it when it comes to gameplay. The longer you stay alive, the tougher it gets. With more paratroopers being dropped and ships flying by, it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the action, and that's what will inevitably happen. Graphically, this game looks great for its time. The artwork is well done and looks sharp on a small 9-inch black and white screen. Almost everything is animated, and most of the time the frame rate is pretty high, somewhere between 45 to 60 frames per second, but that's just a guess. The audio in this game is, again, great for its time, though the opening theme, Rise of the Valkyries, kinda hurts my ears a bit, but that's forgivable. I really like the sound effects, and there's a bunch of them. They sound great on the internal speaker and match up nicely with the action on screen. The hum of the paratrooper plane and the anticipated whoosh of the fighter jet really keep you zoned in and stress the urgency of the threat. To wrap it up, I really enjoy Airborne. It's a lot of fun. I like how much more advanced this feels than Bonsai, but I gotta admit I don't think I can ever go back to Bonsai again after I played this. It feels like such a step up, and really is an addictive game. I could almost see this being a real early 80s arcade cabinet. The downsides, which really isn't this game's fault, is that it runs just okay on an emulator. The frame rate is nowhere near the same as on real hardware, and the bullets kinda disappear and reappear too. It's weird. This isn't the case if you get the game running on an old Mac. It's all really smooth. I can't get it working right on my Mac SE though. Maybe someone out there knows what I'm doing wrong? I also wanted to mention that I played the 1982 DOS game Paratrooper before I played Airborne and thought it was really similar to this. While it is similar, I don't think it was based off of Paratrooper, but rather the Apple II game Sabotage that Paratrooper itself was based on. But it also goes deeper than that, as there was also a 1976 game called Target for the Sol 20 microcomputer. So really, it's just one of those games that keep getting remade and improved. They're all fun games in my opinion, but Airborne is my personal favorite. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna try and get this game running on my Mac SE. Ah, stupid.